No, I can't. I found it.
There we go.
Do I say the prayers first?
Not first, you first.
We don't have a rabbi anymore, hey? Gone back to Canada. Now we lost the sound.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kashanu b'mitzvot v'zifanu lehadil ner shel Shabbat v'yashom
Shel Shabbat.
tov.
Amen.
Shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat, Shel Shabbat, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Congregation may be
not
seated.
allowed to sing that.
Sorry?
I'm usually not allowed to sing that one.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're able to sing it. Congregation may be seated. We're on page 130. We start our journey through the Psalms, Lechuna Ranana, which I'm sure you all, please join in.
And I'm not ready. Lechuna ranana ladonai, lechuna ranana ladonai, 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 naria l'tzur yishenu, naria l'tzur yishenu, 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 nekadma, fana betoda, nekadma, fana betoda, 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 bismirot, narialo, bismirot, narialo, bismirot, narialo, bismirot, narialo, narialo.
So again, that wasn't the ordinary Lechuna Ranana we used to. It was, as I see here, based on an anti-apartheid struggle song. So thank you, Jessica, for giving us this treat of learning about some of the beautiful music that came from the anti-apartheid struggle. And we're going to say this one together in English before we go on to our next psalm. Come, let us sing joyously to God. Raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For the Eternal One is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. In God's hand are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountain are God's. God's is the sea, God made it, and the land which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel Bend the knee before God our Maker, for the Eternal One is our God, and we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care. Oh, if you would but heed God's charge this day. And so we go on to this next psalm, which Jessica is going to lead us in.
Shir Adonai, Shir Shir Chadash, Shir Adonai, Kol Haaretz, Shir Adonai, Baruch Shemo, Basru miyom leyom Yeshuato, Sabru Bagoyim, Kevodo, Sabru Bagoyim, Kevodo, Hod v'hadar lefanav, Hod v'hadar lefanav, Oz v'tiferet b'mikdasho, Oz v'tiferet b'mikdasho, Adonai, Adonai, Shamayim asa, Adonai, Adonai, Shamayim asa.
Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai baruch shemo, basru miyom leyom Yeshuato. Sapru v'goyim kevodo, b'chol ha'amim niflotav, ki gadol Adonai u'meholal me'od, norahu al kol Elohim. Ki kol Elohei amim melilim v'Adonai shamayim asa, hod v'hadar lefanav oz v'tiferet b'mikdasho. Yismechu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam umlo'o, yaloz sadai v'chol asher bo. Az yiranenu kol atzei ya'ar, lifnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz, yishpot tevel b'tzedek, ve'amim be'emunato. And so we come to our third psalm on page 133. We'll read together in English. The Eternal One is sovereign, let the earth exult, the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God, righteousness and justice are the base of God's throne. O you who love God, hate evil, God, guard the lives of your loyal ones, saving them from the hand of the wicked. Light is sown for the righteous and radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in the eternal and acclaim God's holy name. And so we continue in Hebrew with the next psalm. As we say, we go through the week, and as we go through, we just slowly let go of all the stresses and strains and the trauma and the difficulties that we've had during our week. And so we prepare ourselves to greet Shabbat as we transition when we get to Lechadodi. And so we now are on the fourth psalm and going through our week. And so those of you who know the melody, please join in. Mizmor shiru l'Adonai shir chadash, ki niflaot asa, hoshia lo yemino, uzro akodsho, ay 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 hodia Adonai Yeshuato, le'nei hagoyim gilat tzidkato, zachar chasto ve'emunato, levei Yisrael ra'u chol afsei haaretz et Yeshuat Eloheinu hariu l'Adonai kol haaretz pitzchu v'ranenu v'zameru zamru l'Adonai b'chinor v'kol zimra v'chatzotzrot v'kol shofar hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai yiramayam u'melo'o tevel v'yoshvevam neharot yimcha uchaf Yachad arim niraneinu lifnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz yishpot tevel b'tzedek ve'amim b'meisharim. And page 135, let's go back to English. God enthroned on cherubim is sovereign. Peoples tremble, the earth quakes. God is great in Zion and exalted above all peoples. They praise your name as great and awesome. God is holy. Mighty ruler who loves justice. It was you who established equity. You who worked righteous judgment in Jacob. Exalt the eternal our God and bow down to God's footstool. God is holy. Exalt the eternal our God and bow toward God's holy hill. For the eternal our God is holy. And so we come to that last one in our set of Psalms, the 6th Psalm, with 18 mentions of God, again, for the notion of chai or life. 18 mentions of God's name. Some people stand for the psalm. We don't in our community, but nevertheless, that's because it's got such a holiness to it. Mizmor leDavid, havu l'Adonai ben Elim, havu l'Adonai, kavod va'oz, havu l'Adonai, kevod shemo yishtachavu l'Adonai, v'hadrat kodesh, kol Adonai al hamayim, el hakavod yirim, Adonai, al mayim rabim, kol Adonai, Ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vayishaber Adonai et arzei halevanon, Vayarkideim kemo hegel levanon, Sirion kemo venreimim, Kol Adonai chotzev lahavotesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, kol Adonai yechol el hayalot, vayechesov yaharot, uveheichalo kulo merkavod, Adonai lamabu yashav vayeshev, Adonai melech leolam, Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Nai, 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 nai. So we're going to just have a few minutes just to let go of a week of silence before we begin L'Chadodi. Jessica's going to lead us in L'Chadodi. Also, again, another song from the anti-apartheid struggle, so you may not recognize it, but I'm sure you'll catch on. So let's just have a few minutes to let go of all those strains, all those stresses, all those difficulties that we may have had this week, the busyness, and let us just move into the space of the Shabbat.
It's not a new one. It's one that you've known for a long time, but maybe you didn't know where it came from. L'Chadodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabelam. And together, L'Chadodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabelam. Shamor v'zachor b'diborecha, Hishmiyanu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, l'shemo teret v'litila. L'Chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabelam. Shabbat lechu v'necha, ki mekor haberacha, merosh mikeren nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. L'Chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabelam. Hitoreri, ki va'orech kumi ori, ori, shedaberi, kvod Adonai alaich niglam. L'Chadodi likrat kala, nekabelam. בחלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהולה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי הלאה, בואי הלאה. לך דודי לקראת קהלם, פני שבת נקבלתם. Thank you, Jessica. And so with song, we enter into the Shabbat, and a formal moment of entry into the Shabbat is that we reach that seventh psalm, that culmination, the seven being such an important number of completion in Jewish tradition. 6 days we work, 7th day we rest. And so we arrive at Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat, the psalm of the Shabbat, page 140. Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך עוד בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, לזמר לשמך עליון. כי שמחתני אדוני בפועלך, ומעשה ידיך איש בער לא ידע וכסיל לא יבין עצות, צדיק כתמר יפרח כארז ולבנון יזכה. שתולים בבית אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו, עוד ינובון בשיבה, דשנים ורעננים יהיו, להגיד כי ישר אדוני, צורי ולא עוולתה בו. Page 141, the last psalm. אדוני מלאך גאות לבש, לבש אדוני עוז התעזר, אף תיקון תבל בעל תימות. נכון כיסך מאז מעולם אתה, נשאו נהרות אדוני, נשאו נהרות, ייסעו נהרות דוח ים. And together let's sing, מקולות מים, מים רבים, אדירים, אדירים, משברי ים ני ני ני, אדיר במרום אדוני, אדיר במרום אדוני, במרום אדוני, ני ני ני, אדיר במרום, אדיר במרום אדוני, אדיר במרום אדוני. עדותיך נאמנו מאוד לביתך והקודש, אדוני לאורך ימים. Please stand up, page 144. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבם, ועלמד יברח עיוותי וימליך מלכותי, בחיי חון וביום ניחון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגאלה ובזמן קריב וימרו Amen. Yehesh Rabba Mavorach, Leolam ol me'olam hayam, Yitbarach. Yiparach, Vishtabach, Vipar, Vitromnan, Vayitnasem, Vayitadar, Vitale, Vayitalal, Shemei de Kudesha Brichu, Leila min kol birchata v'shiratam, Tushbechata v'nechematam, Dam Iran ve'alma, Ve'yivaru. Amen. And can I please ask our Kayla to come up and to open for us?
Die, 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 die.
Congregation may be seated. We turn to page 148 and read together in English. Blessed are you, eternal our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, whose wisdom opens heaven's gates, whose understanding changes times and seasons, and who arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Everlasting living God, may you reign over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Eternal One, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv, Aravim. Ahavat Olam, Jessica.
Amcha Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
At seminal point of our service where we're going to say the Shema, the proclamation of the oneness of God together. So let's cover our eyes and let's say together, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Leolam Vaed. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'lechtecha v'derech u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumnecha u'keshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Page 156, Emet ve'emuna kol zot v'kayam aleinu ki hu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ein zulato v'anachnu Yisrael amo הפודנו מיד מלאכים מלכנו הגואלנו מכף כל העריצים העושה גדולות עד אין חקר ונפלאות עד אין מספר השם נפשנו בחיים ולא נתן למות רגלינו העושה לנו ניסים בפרעה אותות ומופתים באדמת בני חם ויוצא את עמו ישראל מתוכם לחירות עולם וראו ועניו גבורתו שבחו ורודו לשמו מלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל לכהנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם page 158 מי כמוך.
So you know what to do with this one. Right through the piece, and if, when I can hear you, then I can start my part. Very soft. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neheda b'kodesh nora tehilot osefele malchutecha ne'anecha bokeh lifnei Moshe u'Miriam zeli anu yamru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'eru.
ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל page 160 השכיבנו.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים, ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ושלום מעתה ועד עולם. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים.
So we need personal peace, and in this devastating week where we've seen a resumption of war in Israel and Gaza, let us once again say with gusto, grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our sovereign, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. God, our going and coming to life and to peace forevermore. Blessed are you, Eternal One, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people, Israel, over Jerusalem and over the whole world. Baruch atah Adonai haporesu kat shalom aleinu al kol amo Yisrael, al Yerushalayim, ve'al kol haolam. Please stand up for Yismachu.
Yambidi bam bam ba, Shabbat, Shabbat. Yambidi bam bam ba, Shabbat, Shabbat. Yambidi bam bam ba, Shabbat, Shabbat. Shabbat, Shabbat. Shabbat, Shabbat. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, V'korei oneg oneg Shabbat. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, V'korei oneg oneg Shabbat. Aham mekadesh shemi, kulam yisma'u v'yitdangu, mitu
Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, V'korei oneg oneg Shabbat. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, Korei oneg oneg Shabbat. V'ho shevi ratzita bo, ratzita bo v'kidashto, kendat yamim oto karata, zecher l'maaseh Bereshit. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, Korei oneg oneg Shabbat. Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, Korei oneg oneg Shabbat. And so can I call up Keturah and Romain, please, to open the ark for us. We are going to turn to the Amidah. We are going to do the first part together, and then we're going to go together silently, and then we'll join together with Modim Anachnu Lach, which Jessica will lead us in. Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha, eternal God.
Open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el hagadol hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon gomel chasadim tovim, konei hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיה מתים אתה רב להושיע משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני העפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך מימית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. אתה קידשת יום השביעי לשמך. ויחולו השבת. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו. רצה אדוני אלוהינו בעמך ישראל. שכינתו לציון מודים.
מודים אנחנו לך שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו לעולם ועד. צור חיינו מגן ישנו צור חיינו מגן ישנו אתה הוא לדור ודור לדור ודור. נודה לך ונספר תהילתך על חיינו הנצורים בידיך ועל נשמותינו הפקודות לך ועל ניסיך שבכל יום עמנו ועל נפלותיך וטובותיך שבכל ערב בבוקר בצהריים ערב בבוקר בצהריים התוקי לא חלום רחמך והמרחם כי לא תמו חסדיך מעולם קיווינו לך קיווינו לך קיווינו לך.
ויעל כולם יתברך ויתפרומם, שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד, וכל החיים יודוך סלע, ויעלו את שמך באמת, האל ישועתנו ועזרתנו סלע, ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך, ולך נאה להודות. שלום רב.
שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. כי אתה הוא מלך אדום לכל השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך אדום לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך,
תשים לעולם.
שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך,
תשים לעולם.
שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל ואת כל העולם בשלום. So we're now going to close the ark. We're going to have a little while for meditation, silent meditation, and we're going to, Jessica's going to lead us in Lo Yisagoy, which is on page 179. Nation shall not take up sword against nation, neither shall they know war anymore. And so we will first have some opportunity for some silence.
You know, it's such a pity that you can't have the one night with the shul and the other night with the family.
Yeah. Sure, he does one last time.
Lo yisagoy el goy khere, lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisagoy el goy khere, lo yilmedu od milchama.
Lo yisagoy el goy khere, v'lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisagoy el goy khere, v'lo yilmedu od
milchama. Lo yisagoy el goy khere, lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisagoy el goy khere, lo yilmedu od milchama.
And so from that anti-war statement from Isaiah, we go to Oseh Shalom, please make peace in the high heavens. And let us sing with gusto together, led by Jessica, Oseh Shalom.
Oseh Shalom, Bimroma, Bimroma, Uyaseh Shalom, Aleinu, Ve'al kol Yisrael, Ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel, Ve'imru. Amen.
May the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace for us, for Israel, and for all who inhabit this earth. And let us all say, Amen. And so we turn to page 511, and we're going to think of those who are sick, both in body and in spirit. And we remember on this list I have here, Louis Gilman, and wish a refuah shleima and speedy recovery to them, Claire Lazar, Barry Levine, Jonathan Rosenberg, and Jeanette Wallov. And I'll give an opportunity for the congregation to add anyone you are thinking of at the moment as I move my hand around from various rows.
David Fig.
Excellent. So, page 511, Misha Barach.
Misha Barach, Lavoteinu, Kol HaBracha, Limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Barach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
Thank you, Jessica. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And thanks for the beautiful music, Jessica, and inspiring us in this beautiful service. This week's portion of the week is called Vayakel. And it starts off with the prohibition on working on the Shabbat. And it goes on to discuss the extraordinary and overwhelming response of the people of Israel to the request for gifts to build the tabernacle in the desert. The response was so great that Moses had to ask people to stop giving. The first word of this portion is called Vayakel, and it means, and they gathered. And the root of this word is the root of the word for community, or kehilah, and the importance of community that Jewish tradition places. And last night I went to see a wonderful musical called Dear Evan Hansen. It's one of the great musicals of the last 10 years or so, and it deals with very, very contemporary themes of loneliness, of grief, and a world in which we are all connected, and yet so many feel so alone. If you can go see it, it is really a world-class production at the Teatro, and I highly recommend it. We learn in this week's portion that what forms a community is a balance of work and rest for everyone equally. But moreover, a community is formed through a sense of belonging one has to the community, and the active steps that one takes to participate in communal projects like the building of the tabernacle. Everyone's contribution is valued, as they are valued members of our community without any distinction. Today we mark Human Rights Day, whose origin lies in the denial of fundamental rights. On 21st of March 1960, a group of unarmed protesters gathered in Sharpeville to protest against the pass laws that sought to prevent black people from moving freely across South Africa. The protesters surrounded the police station, but without any provocation, the police fired on the protesters, with 69 people killed and 180 being injured. And so, to start off, we need to mark this day, and I ask everyone to stand up, and we're going to have a minute's silence for those who died in Sharpeville and in the repression in general during apartheid in South Africa. Thank you. You may be seated. This day marks the repression instituted by the apartheid government in pursuance of its policies, which were designed deliberately to deny fundamental rights to black people and to entrench a hierarchical society where the color of one's skin determined one's chances in life and associated economic opportunities. The Constitution sets its face against such a society and seeks to lay the groundwork for a different society founded on the central values of equality, dignity, and freedom, where everyone is equal and everyone counts. Justice Muhammad, in an early judgment relating to the unconstitutionality of the death penalty, states the following about our Constitution. In some countries, the Constitution only formalizes in a legal instrument a historical consensus of values and aspirations, evolved incrementally from a stable and unbroken past to accommodate the needs of the future. The South African Constitution is different. It retains from the past only what is defensible and represents a decisive break from and a ringing rejection of that part of the past which is disgracefully racist, authoritarian, insular, and repressive, and a vigorous identification of and commitment to a democratic, universalistic, caring, and aspirationally egalitarian ethos expressly articulated in the Constitution. The contrast between the past, which it repudiates, and the future to which it seeks to commit this nation is stark and dramatic. The idea of a contrast between the past and the future is central, for instance, to the interim constitution, which described itself as a historic bridge between the past of a deeply divided society characterized by strife, conflict, untold suffering and injustice, and a future founded on the recognition of human rights, democracy, and peaceful coexistence, and the development of opportunities for all South Africans, irrespective of color, race, class, belief, or sex. This idea of a bridge is very important as it resonates with the role of the Constitution in our society. The Constitution cannot automatically change the existing state of inequality that South Africa was in 1994. But it is designed to create the framework to take us from the one state that was mentioned in the past to something else in the future. And this idea is captured by what we refer to often as transformative constitutionalism. Our Constitution is not designed to entrench the status quo, but to transform our society. And so in a famous article, the academic Professor Carl Clear, where he coined this term, he said that the South African Constitution is designed to engage in a long-term project of constitutional enactment, interpretation, and enforcement, committed to transforming political and social institutions and power relationships in a democratic, participatory, and egalitarian direction. Importantly, despite the fact that the law entrenched injustice in the past, the way in which our society will change, we committed to, was through the law. The idea is that there be non-violent processes of social change through the law. And this sets itself in the face of violent revolution that has occurred in many other countries and which often doesn't achieve its desired results and re-traumatizes those societies. In this sermon, as I wrote in the title, I've sought to focus on a particular aspect of our history, and that is the entrenchment of economic inequality as well as spatial injustice. Even pre-apartheid, during the colonial era, one of the major issues was for the colonial government how to ensure cheap labor for the newly discovered mines. I'm not telling you the whole of South African history because I could only give a little potted element, but of course with the discovery of diamonds in Kimberley and then gold later on in Johannesburg, there was a need for labor. And one of the most iniquitous inventions of the colonial era was the hut and the poll tax, which forced black people to move from their lives, peaceful lives in their communities, in the rural areas, to work on the mines in order to pay a conjured up tax that they would not pay otherwise. I know tax is in the ether at the moment, but we should, from our history, know that tax is not necessarily something that is just. And there was segregated the people who arrived in the mines into separate conditions, which were lamentable. And that starting point would provide the foundation for many of the key goals of apartheid, which was to maintain black people as an economic underclass, providing cheap labor for white businesses and industry. To maintain the system, as everyone knows here, a rigid separation of areas in South Africa was created, and also within cities, which was enforced through the Group Areas Act. The past laws essentially prevented black people from moving freely across the country and only allowed those people who would work for white employers into the so-called white areas. Spatial apartheid also required the forcible displacement of people who didn't fit into the correct areas. And famously in this area, Sophiatown and in the Cape District 6, mixed neighborhoods were forcibly separated and people were removed and displaced. This is the legacy. I've only touched on it. I can only touch on it, and I'm sorry for potted histories because that's all I can do tonight. But it is a difficult legacy to address and one which our Constitution requires us to correct. The first right in the Bill of Rights is that of equality, and it also envisages requiring the government in the government taking measures to address the legacy of the past. The property clause requires the state to take reasonable legislative and other measures to foster conditions which ensure citizens can gain access to land on an equitable basis. And Section 25(7) provides that a person or community dispossessed of property after 19th of June 1913, which was the passing of the Land Act, as a result of past racially discriminatory laws or practices, is entitled to restitution or to equitable redress. The Constitution also enshrined many socio-economic rights. As part of the goal, as part of what their goal is or their purpose is in the Constitution, they are designed to correct for the legacy of economic exclusion by ensuring that every citizen of every person, in fact, in South Africa, has adequate housing, food, water, social security, healthcare, and education. So I cannot address everything that engages this topic, as I've mentioned, around economic apartheid and spatial apartheid, but I wanted to engage with three interesting cases that came before the Constitutional Court over time, which show some progress in this regard. And so, amidst the gloom that we face in general in our world at the moment, tonight I'd like to focus on some positive stories of the power that fundamental rights can have when they are properly enforced. Now, many people will have heard about the Grootboom case. And it was based in the Cape, where apartheid planning made no provision for the influx of black people. And so there was a mushrooming of informal settlements around the Cape the city of Cape Town, for instance, and anyone who knows Cape Town now will see that. Some of those areas were deliberately designed as well under apartheid to push colored people into those areas. But for black people, there was no specific provision. And so a group of people in the Western Cape living in terrible conditions landed up on a field with only plastic sheeting to cover them in the driving rain of the winter of the Western Cape. And those of you who've been down there can imagine what that must be like. And they came to court, and they came to the Constitutional Court eventually, and they claimed, we have a right to have access to adequate housing. And the city and the government, national government, responded and said, well, we have a long-term housing plan to try and provide decent housing for these people, but they must wait their turn. Now, I remember being in court at the time. I was a clerk at the Constitutional Court, and during the hearing, the late great president of the Constitutional Court, Justice Chaskelson, asked the council what would happen to the people in the interim. And he was told by the government, national government, in the long term they will all get housing, and we've got plans to give everyone housing. And in response, he quoted the famous economist John Maynard Keynes and said, in the long term, we're all dead. The court essentially found that government planning and programs had to be reasonable. It was fundamentally not reasonable to not plan for people in desperate need and without roofs over their head in the interim. The government was ordered to correct its program to ensure that it had a plan to provide for those in the interim, in the shorter term, who were in desperate need. And that judgment led to the government developing an emergency housing program for those in desperate need. And the next cases follow on from that. In a case relating to evictions by a municipality of people who were on land which was not their own, the court effectively held that the government had to provide people who would be rendered homeless with some form of alternative accommodation. However, there was some uncertainty about the meaning of this holding when there were evictions from private land. And the issue bubbled up in Johannesburg this time in a case called Blue Moonlight Properties, where 86 occupiers had been for quite a while on private property owned by this company. The company had decided it wanted to develop its property and evict the people, but the people had nowhere to go. The city claimed it had no obligations to provide them with alternative accommodation because this was a private eviction. The Constitutional Court once again had to adjudicate this and balance the various interests. It said that private individuals and companies may have to be patient temporarily if there are people on their land and who would be rendered homeless by an eviction. It, however, said that private individuals and companies did not have to provide accommodation indefinitely to such people. It affirmed that even in the case of private evictions, the state had a duty to provide alternative accommodation for people who would otherwise be rendered homeless and within a reasonable proximity of their existing accommodation. And that issue of proximity arose in a case which I landed up sitting on while I was an acting judge at the Constitutional Court, which was delivered the judgment was delivered in December last year, and I wrote a concurring judgment. It dealt with a group of residents of Cape Town in Woodstock who had managed to remain in their homes despite the forcible evictions of black and colored residents from that area. They were deeply embedded in the community. Their children attended the schools in the area. They had health care and were familiar with the health care around that area, and their livelihoods were all achieved or all received from minimal but nevertheless important employments they had in the inner city. These were all, however, people who were not eligible for higher level grants that the government gave to some people who had a little bit more income to put into properties. Now, the city of Cape Town had adopted a policy of seeking to promote development in the inner city. People who owned properties therefore wished to take advantage of the various schemes that were on offer to them, and they wanted to evict these residents. The city recognized it did have an obligation to provide alternative accommodation to these people, But initially, it offered them accommodation 30 kilometers away. And then it revised its offer to provide accommodation 15 kilometers away. That would have disrupted these people's social networks, the livelihoods of these people, and they did not have money for transport. The people recognized that they could not stay in their existing housing, but they asked for accommodation in a reasonable proximity of their existing accommodation. Now, this was a very difficult case, and one which highlighted the features of spatial apartheid in Cape Town, and how particularly black and colored people were being forced out of the inner city. The Constitutional Court found that the city's policies on gentrification would foreseeably have led people to be displaced out of the areas in which they were. In those circumstances, their emergency housing policy needed to make provision for ensuring that existing residents were provided with accommodation within the inner city. It was unreasonable in light of South African history to develop a policy which did not correct for spatial apartheid, but ultimately exacerbated it. In a concurring judgment, whilst I did not seek to prescribe policy to the government, I took note of a range of international developments where planning permission in various cities in the world is only given if developments include a contribution by the developers towards low-cost development in the area, or, for instance, a percentage of a building that is developed is earmarked for low-cost housing. I also referenced the role that business itself can play in contributing towards advancing the interests of those who are least well off. These cases demonstrate the potential that the socio-economic rights in our Constitution have for addressing the legacy of economic and spatial apartheid. I do not suggest that we have arrived and we do not have a long way to go 30 years on. There are multiple failures from the side of the legislature and the executive. I have, in fact, in my academic work, also been a critic of the judiciary, or who, though I've told you some good stories, have at times been quite timid in ensuring these rights are given effect to. The reality is that addressing the legacy of the past in South Africa is a massive task. The Constitution sets the framework and seeks to provide a blueprint that helps us understand both what we must aim at and at times how we should get there. At the same time, as our Torah portion suggests, the creation of a new society is not one that can happen simply by decree. It requires the contribution of all the people to make it happen. We need our politicians and government leaders unflinchingly to work together towards this vision in the era of coalitions. Our judges must help support and provide legal guidance on what is required. And each of us individually cannot ignore our own role in bringing about a society in which the human rights of all are respected. We must consider in our own lives what contributions can we make, however small, to advancing the goal of the Constitution. And even if slightly, even a little bit, nudging our society and hopefully the world towards a more just and equitable future. As Pirkei Avot, as our ethics of our fathers say, it is not our duty to complete the task, but neither can we desist from it. Thank you. And so we turn to conclude our service with Aleinu, page 586. And I call up now Melinda and Erwin, please. Page 586, Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, la'ateit gedula li'yotzer v'reishit, shehu nustanu kariyeh haratzot, v'lo saman, כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלי. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומיים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס סולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ, מתחת אין עוד. על כן נקווה לך, אדוני אלוהינו, לראות מהרה בתפארת עוזך, להעביר גילולים מן הארץ והאלים קרות יקרתון, לתקן עולם במלכות שדי וכל בני בשר יקראו בשמך, להפנות אליך כל ראשי ארץ, יכירו וידעו כל יושבי תבל, page 590. כי לך תכרע כל ברך, תשבע כל לשון, לפניך אדוני אלוהינו יכרו ויפולו, ולכבוד שמך יקר ייתנו, ויקבלו כולם את עול מלכותך, ותמלוך עליהם מהרה לעולם ועד. כי המלכות שלך היא ולמעט תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. And so we send our sincere condolences to our member Claire Morgan on the passing of her father John Morgan on Wednesday night after an illness lasting several months. Wish you long life, Claire. May John's memory be for a blessing to Claire and all the other mourners. And there is also Yortsites we are remembering tonight: Lynette De Pinto, Ben Favis, Roberta Galvin, Elaine Gavshon, Charles Manoim, Alec Mendelowitz, Justin Ubertzimmer, Michael Perlman, Gerald Putziger, Ivan Rogoff, Edward Schneider, Sybil Manoim, Simeon Tobias, and Michael Wasserman. May their memory be for a blessing. Those who have yortsites, if you'd like to come forward, as Rabbi Chava is doing, we can recognize those who have specific yortsites tonight in the front and say Kaddish together. Please come forward.
Silverman. Sybil Silverman, not Manoim. מלכותנו, וחייכון ביומכון, וחיי דכל בית ישראל, והגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. שמי רבה מבורך לעולם, עמי עמיה. יפרח וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ותדע ותעלה ותהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו, ואלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. וישלם הרבה מן שמיה, עלינו ועל כל ישראל. אמן. Amen. This week's.
The correct list, we did say an inclusive Kaddish, so we included these people, but I'm going to mention their names because it's important. Brian Bunge, William Fischbach, Anastasia Katz, Leslie King, Carl Posel, Trevor Silverman, Max Silverman, Molly Smolin, and Solomon Trocky. May their memory be a blessing. Thank you very much, Diane. And we are now going to call up the younger people who've had a lovely time, I hope, with the special thing, the special service. Have they had a great time? That's fantastic. And we have some nice sweets. Okay. Okay, so before the sweets, we're going to give you a blessing. Okay, let's put the... let's do this. Oh, sorry. Okay, you can put it. Okay, come over, come under the talit. Okay. Yivarechecha, Adonai Mishmerecha, Ye'er Adonai Panav Elecha V'Yichunecha, Yisa Adonai Panav Elecha V'Yasem Shalom. Please be blessing. And there you're very honest. Okay. There we go. I think we've got enough for 2 each. But let's just make sure that we've got enough. Let's just see that everyone gets. And if you, otherwise, then you can take 2. Hello, Teresa.
No, that's 3. No, I got 2.
You want? You can also take 2. So there we go. Do you want? There we go. Take 1. There we go. Okay, so there was enough for people. Very nice. Excellent. Okay, the congregation may be seated. I don't have the correct list, so I'm not sure what are the things I meant to announce. So if someone wants to come and announce any elements, please feel free to make announcements. I know that we've got Talmud tomorrow, and we've got a service at 9:30, and Talmud at 12. I'm not sure this week. I imagine there's information about Pesach as well in the bulletin or whatever that you need to look at. Elisa's nodding because I know yes. And please book early for Pesach. Anything else from the management committee that you would like to be noted? Okay, I gather from Peter that the rabbi, we're hoping the rabbi will be in time for Pesach. So that sounds like good news. Cautiously optimistic, but Peter, why don't you go up there, and then we'll, in the meantime, move to. Let's have a look. What is my list? We're finishing off our Don Olam, page 625, but before that.
Hi everybody. Just to remind that we've got Psalmies again on Thursday. So for those people who donate, who I'm always very grateful for, please try and have stuff here by Wednesday, coming Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much, everyone. And let us conclude the service. Thank you to Jessica again. Thanks very much for beautiful music. And for IT support. I know there were some issues.
The sermon, beautiful sermon.
Thank you very much. And so thank you very much. And so we conclude with Adon Olam, page 625.
Yeah, so when I do this one, I think of a hymn. And I think of how when people sing hymns, they sing together. So that's a hint, everybody. Adon Olam, Hashem Allah. בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, ואחרי ככלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו
Beli Reshit, Beli Tachlit, Velo Haos, V'Hamisra,
Hu Eli,
V'Chai Goali, V'Tzur Chevli, Beit Sahara, V'Hu Nisi, Umanos Li, Menat Kosi, V'Yom Ekra, V'Yado, Afkid Ruchi, Beit Isha,
V'Aira, V'In Ruchi, Gaviati, Adonai li, V'lo ira.
Sorry, I forgot to mention one thing. Dave, thank you for the wonderful service and the wonderful sermon. Very informative. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. See you at Kiddush now.